because of that one document, we probably made over $10 million.
I am here with the Swans, Brian and Rhonda Swan. They're called the unstoppable family. I think there's this culture out there that you're gonna fail before you succeed. And I get it, but I'm always like, what causes someone to fail?
You gave me the format, you said, this is what I'm doing every week. I just made it my own, but that's how we stayed in the game. But it was just listening and being willing to say someone knows more than I do. How do I listen to them? How do I implement what they're teaching?
For everybody watching, it's like, what don't you know? Or what do you know really well that maybe you don't know everything? All right, Jeremy Miner, welcome to another episode of Closers Are Losers. Jeremy Miner, founder of 7 Level. I am here with the Swans, Brian and Rhonda Swan, and I want to give them an introduction of introductions. So I knew these guys back in, what was it, 2006? This is when I met you guys?
No, early, 2004.
No, but he got in.
You started a little bit later, so maybe 5, 6.
2007,
Yeah.
I think, somewhere. So my second or third industry I sold in was network marketing. And I joined this network marketing company, and they were already top earners in that space. And I got in, and I was like, wow, these guys are really cool. And that's kind of where the journey started with the Swans. And I saw you at this event, Brian. I'm like, oh, Brian, I haven't talked to you in what, 10 years or something like that?
Yeah.
But it was originally, we met here at the Moon Palace.
Isn't that crazy?
This
Yeah.
here.
This Moon Palace,
Yeah.
because the network marketing company we worked for
Events
always
here.
had their events at Moon Palace or the Cancun Palace. So because Kayla was like, have you been here? I'm like, yeah, like 14 times.
Exactly.
It's like the Moon Palace. Like, there's the pools, there's the
Yeah, we know
things.
exactly
like,
what it looks like.
There's the restaurants. Don't go to that restaurant. Go to this one. So it's interesting that how it comes back full circle. But they're called the unstoppable family, and I think this was a term that you guys came up with like 2008, 2009, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
And I want to get to your story in a second. But as you know, that everybody that watches the show, I only bring on guests that I feel can help you in different parts of your life. Now, we mainly talk about sales, persuasion, and influence, obviously with the show, with 7 Level being a sales training company. But we also want to bring in guests that maybe that are very successful business owners and entrepreneurs that can teach you skill sets where we train you how to sell, and you maybe could use those skill sets. Maybe one day down the road, you start your own thing, or you want to get into something else where you can use your communication skills. And what I always say is that successful people learn from their mistakes, but the ultra successful, they don't learn from their mistakes, they learn from other people's mistakes, so they don't make the same mistakes themselves. And that's very key, because when you don't make the same mistakes everybody else is making, you tend to grow your business or become more successful far faster, because you don't go through trial and error. And that's what I'm talking about. So let's talk about it. So back, you guys were top earners in this, network marketing industry like I was back in the day. You guys now have a PR firm, correct? And we're going to talk about that. Back in 2008, something happened, and you guys just kind of moved out of you went to Bali. And I want to know the whole story, because I don't think I've ever asked you, like, why?
Yeah, well, it's actually, I was a corporate executive for a pharmaceutical company, right? Brian was a robotics engineer. And there was I think many of us have these moments of clarity where something happens and you're like, I'm going to make a shift in my life. And that was the day that I witnessed a woman putting a 6-week-old baby in daycare, and she was late for a meeting. My boss basically threw in the cross for being late. And I sat there because I was going to take over her position. We lived in California at the time. We just bought a 5-bedroom house, and we were going to have kids. And I was like, I need to make a change. Came home, tell Brian, I'm quitting my job. And he's like, are you crazy? I was like, yeah, but it's okay. You could just get a better job. And then use that.
I don't care if I'm my boss's boss's boss.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to afford this mortgage. I go, why don't you go find something you can work from home? And this was like a joke.
Yeah,
and she just says, yep.
Yeah, I did. I said, I'm going to do it. And so what happened is it was obviously, we know how divine timing happens. I was sitting late at night and a documentary came on with Steve Jobs. Okay. And first it was Tony Robbins. Remember when Tony Robbins used to do those late night shows? Yeah. And Steve Jobs said, if you're not learning how to work online, you're gonna be lost in the dark. And I was like, okay, I gotta work online. I gotta figure
the online thing in 2004, 2005 was a lot different than it is now. It's
There's
like
social media.
It was like with the Wild West,
Yeah,
You could say anything on your ads or anything.
So true. I had really good ads like CEO income working from home. Don't believe me, don't call. But I was running Google ads, so they actually had to click and then call an 800 number. That was my funnel.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Right?
Mine was corporate executive quits job, gets filthy, stinking rich. See how? I'm like, I don't think you can say that in those days. But that's that's why I didn't fit with you guys, because we both came from corporate America when we got into that industry there for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. So you were successful, you're doing well, and then some. We had the big 2008 2009 collapse.
Yeah, well, we crushed it. So I literally retired Brian a year later. I replaced both of our incomes. And then we were rocking for 3 years, right? Like that was when we met. It was like boom, 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 boom. Okay.
But this was the time, we wanted to start investing in real estate because
we got into real estate. Everybody was doing real estate. Taxis, cab drivers are talking about all the properties they bought the week before,
Yeah. So we went into a golf course development deal out in Flagstaff, Arizona. Land, buildings, like about 5 different houses, $1 million houses. And then, lo and behold, the guy extracted all the building
out of the construction loans. And the banks are like, "Hey, Swans, your homes are built. Congratulations, it's time to start paying." You flip to a mortgage. We're like, "The homes aren't even built yet. There's no toilets." They're like, "Well, all the money's gone." But it was because the reason why we were doing this, because I finally got pregnant. It's like, yes, we're preparing for our baby, and we signed our name off, power of attorney, on all of the construction loans. So we wouldn't have any.
And 20 other families did, so it wasn't just us. It was a big.
It was a big project.
Big group of investors kind of got screwed. And then around that time, it was 2000. The collapse started happening. Right?
It was like slow.
So it was like double whammy. So like,
it was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah. It was.
So double whammy. You're like, we just lost our assets, or a lot of them. And then what caused you to?
The 4-hour work week.
Okay.
Tim Ferriss. So we were listening to the book for about a year, and there's this chapter called The Mini Retirement. And he's talking about.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah.
And he's talking about living in different countries, and you have a business online. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense.
That's a great idea.
So I came home to Rhonda, and I said, what if we just got rid of everything and traveled? And she's like,
I was so mad at him. I was like, no.
You're like, no.
I'm going to stay in this house. We have a baby. I can rebuild. I've done it for 3 years. We're already set. Yeah. However, I started to really think about it. I'm like, we are messed. Like right now, our house is like $12,500 just to walk in the door, right? Not even the car. It's not even to breathe, eat.
You got some overhead.
Right? We had some overhead. And we're like, okay. So I opened up the book. I read The Mini Retirement. And he walks out in the morning. I'm sitting there on the computer and I'm researching Bali.
So you find Bali, and then how long from that day till you actually left to go to Bali?
Well, we left. Well, after we made that decision, this was in June. My daughter was born in April, and we left in November of the same year.
So that you're 5-6 months.
We literally 5-6 months. We fire sold everything. We left with $12,872.62 to our name and a vision and a vow to never put Hanalei in daycare. And we left on the 25th of November, and we flew directly actually to Hanalei Bay, Kauai, which Hanalei was named after, and we were married. And we lived in about 30 some countries before we actually moved to Bali.
Oh, wow. So you lived in these countries, and you got online, you started making a name for yourself and making money, and then you got into the PR field. Tell us that journey, how you got into PR.
Yeah, well, initially, the reason why Unstoppable Family came about is because this is right when Facebook and YouTube came out. And I'm like, okay, if anything we did well, which was when we were in network marketing, was we were building a brand and inserting it as a wedge between the company. So everyone wanted to work with us. They didn't even care what we were offering, right? So I was like, okay, we did that well. Okay, that's done. But what if I took what I'm doing and help people build their brand? Teach them to tell their story, help them create an identity, and then show them how to utilize the assets of building a brand online. And so it started off as really my branding course. I was running 8-week courses. I started working with Perry Marshall. I learned how to run Google ads, all the things. And so our branding firm really took off. And then about 8 years ago now, I think it's been about 8, almost maybe 10, is when we went from brand image, message, strategy, PR as our value ladder, and basically started now with clients that are ready just for PR. So it allowed us to up-level our client base, to start talking with a different person. We had a much better relationships now in the PR space. And so now we primarily work, our sweet spot is we build the online brand of entrepreneurs, CEOs, experts. We build their online profile, in order for them to not only be searched, but to be seen as an expert Google vendor.
Why is branding so important, even from like a salesperson's perspective? Let's say even if you sell life insurance or you sell cars or you're a real estate agent, why is branding something that's so important that really can set you apart from people you're competing with?
Well, I mean, it comes down to being, unique in the space, right? There's thousands of people that do the same thing that you do, same thing that I do, but not everyone is the Unstoppable family. And they're not branded. They don't know us, they don't know our story. So I think that's actually the number one most important. Doesn't matter what kind of company you're in or working for. Most CEOs now, why do we love Richard Branson? Why do we love Gary Vee? Right? Why do we love you? Because you're in the front of your company and people know who you are, they know your values. You're the brand.
And it's so true. It's the way you brand yourself, because sometimes, we have an internal marketing team of probably 30 people now or something like that. So they're always like sending me content that they want me to record. And sometimes they'll be like, hey, we want you to dress up like a kangaroo or something like this. And I'm like, guys, that's not me. Like if I did that, people would be like, that's not him. That's not his brand, right? He's more professional. He's more, not necessarily corporate, but not like jump around in a kangaroo suit. Yeah. Some people can do that and be funny, but that's not me. So it's important that you stick to who you are as a brand, because I think when you go off brand, you become inauthentic, and people are like, that's not him, that's not her.
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So Swano, tell us what you're working on. So you guys got the PR agency. You've also, what else are you doing? You were talking some stuff with me the other day that you're doing in Bali that I find very interesting.
Yeah, so we built a couple villas in Bali, down in the Bingin Uluwatu area. I'm a big time surfer, so it's like the world's best waves right in our front yard. And we built a restaurant, and now we're doing a land development up on the hills. And it's going to be a high-end eco-luxe
I think it's
resort.
Fascinating. You're talking like 2009, you had $12,000 to your name, and then 12 years later, you're in a completely different state. But I think the thing that you probably agree with me, the reason why you were able to do that is because even though the market crashed and you lost your assets, you had still invested so much money in your self-education and your skill level that although it hurt, you could rebuild. Whereas a lot of people, they don't really put much money into developing their skill level, whether it's in marketing or branding or sales or engineering or whatever it is. And so when outside factors like a real estate crash happen, their lives are just dependent on outside factors they have no control over. Whereas you, because you had the skill level and the knowledge, you could go out and rebuild because you controlled your destiny. Tell us the importance of developing skill level.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the most important. First off, your mindset is the biggest, right? Investing in not only your knowledge, but your personal development, and your emotional intelligence. Because when the stuff hits the fan, you are at your best when you're at your worst, right? And it's how can we control? That was where we were at. We were like, okay, we have a brand new baby. We just lost everything. And here we've got 2 Mercedes, an Escalade, a $1.5 million home. And we're trying to teach people prosperity consciousness, how to build a company and build a business. But one thing that we realized is that our bank account didn't represent who we were and the knowledge that we had inside. So we knew we were resilient enough to make it happen again. And so I think that alone, investing not only in skills, because you can rebuild immediately. Like we've had multiple ups and downs, but we've always known.
I always say that, if you acquire knowledge that other people do not have, you are valuable in the market over anybody else. So if you learn marketing skills, you can always just go out and rebrand yourself and market in something else. If you learn sales and communication skills, you can probably get any job you want to, right? Because you're successful. Or maybe you take that and start your own business and you're successful. I think there's this culture out there that, and I understand where they're coming from, but they always talk about like, hey, you're gonna fail before you succeed. It's good to fail and stuff like that. And I get it, but I'm always like, I always look at things as like, well, what causes someone to fail? And in my mind, and I wanna talk to you guys about, there's really 2 big factors. There's other things, but it's really like your skill level. Like if I have a high skill level in something and I am really talented in that area, let's say it's sales, right? It's harder for me to fail at sales if my EQ of sales and communications up here and I've acquired this knowledge. It's really hard for me to fail. However, if I don't have that knowledge, right? Let's say I'm a real estate agent or a mortgage broker and the interest rates go up like they are now. If you don't have skill sets to be able to really sell, even in a down market, doesn't matter, you're dependent on outside factors, like sitting around watching CNBC all day, hoping and praying the Federal Reserve lowers the rates. So that means you don't have control of your destiny. Whereas a real estate agent that has a high level of sales ability and branding ability, they might get a little bit less listings, but they're not really affected by it because they know how to communicate. They control their destiny, not outside factors. So why do you feel like that has been such a key for you guys?
Well, let me start. When I was in robotics engineering, I was a high-end, I had to know the technology, but I was outside in the way I got compensated with sales. So I didn't learn any of the programming language. When I went to trainings, I was just like, I'm like, I got other people to do that. I just learned how to do sales.
Yeah, because you weren't selling the thing, you're selling the results of what the thing does.
Yeah, and I knew that one thing is you be resourceful. So it's like, I got the technical people and the thing, I can bring them out. I just need to know how to sell. So I was studying sales the whole time while everybody else was studying engineering. And I was always one of the top 1, 2, or 3 for 10 years. And then a programming language that dies off when you don't do the programming. And so that led into when we were in network marketing, I took the exact same skills and it was like, boom, I was right into the mix. And that's how we became top income earners. And let me just share this thing about Jeremy. We were top income earners. Yeah. And then Jeremy came in and blasted it. And then we're like,
we need to now learn some more sales.
Oh, we're like,
who's that guy?
Going like,
what's
who
he
is,
up to?
who's
that
who
guy?
is this guy?
He's got better skills.
And I go, can we learn? And he shared. He was kind of, he doesn't. I think it was Drew who always said, Jeremy never shares the gold. He'll give you the silver, but he gave us enough to where we just like our sales doubled.
The one thing that you did though, Jeremy, and this is really vital because I love when you said earlier is that success leaves clues, right? And the ultra successful, they learn from others' failures. And that's what we were like, okay, so this guy's coming in and I said, how are you closing everyone this way? You're like, well, I'm doing this business plan. Yeah. I said, will you share that with me? You're like, I'll share a document with you. Because of that one document, I've never told you this. We probably made over $10 million because I did exactly the plan. You go, I'm just meeting with them every week. You didn't tell me how to do it. You gave me the format. You said, this is what I'm doing every week. I just made it my own, but that's how we stayed in the game. But it was just listening and being willing to say someone knows more than I do. And how do I listen to them? How do I implement what they're teaching me? And I think that's, the most.
Well, I was always learning too. I was learning from you guys and other top earners. I wanted to learn from like the top 50 in that business. There was tens of thousands of distributors, but I'm like, if I can surround myself around them, maybe I'm way stronger on the sales side, but maybe they're way stronger on the marketing side. I always can learn something. Like I'm always a sponge. Like just give me the thing and like let me learn from it, and maybe I'll look at it from the way my brain thinks, and I'm like, if we change this and this, like we could even make it better. So it's always about learning. I think that entrepreneurs or salespeople or CEOs or anybody, once you believe you've arrived, I know this is cliche, we always hear this, but so many people think they've arrived because they're successful and they can't learn anything else or learn from other people's viewpoints. I never want to be that person because even at the height of my sales career, which was in that time when I was doing network marketing and I still had my corporate career sales job at the same time, I was doing both. I was always learning, trying to improve because I never wanted to like stay at the same level of income that I was at. I was like, there's just stuff I don't know, And I think for everybody watching, it's like, what don't you know? Or what do you know really well that maybe you don't know everything, right? And I always say the biggest problem in sales is the problem that you don't know you have. Because if you don't know you have this problem, you don't know how to fix it. You don't know how to do anything. 100%. Now, I want to talk to you about something I know you guys are very proud of. So your daughter, how do I pronounce her name? Hanalei, after the Hawaiian island. Yeah. She was up on stage here at this event. This isn't a huge event, but there's probably 500-600 people. That's a lot of people for adults to speak to, let alone a 17-year-old. So when you moved to Bali, she's probably like one or two, because you're traveling all over.
Yeah, we lived in about 35 plus countries, 7 continents. Moved to Bali when she was 7.
So you've taught her things that the public school system would never teach. Yeah. Tell us why, and tell us what values and what you really wanted her to grow up like learning. I'd like to know. I think a lot of people like.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy because the first events that we went to was right here at the Moon Palace, and when it was our first personal development event, you're a sponge, and we were just like, oh my gosh, right? Yeah. So we're going back. So a lot of the parenting skills was from here. And we're like, we're going to do that. It was what we had nothing set on how we're going to raise our future children. We're like, we like this, and we just keep on taking each one and we implement.
Yeah.
And one of the strong things is that when she was like 4 or 5 years old, we started doing videos with her. We call them Wisdom of the Day with Hanalei. And so we had her speak her voice, so she felt comfortable, like confident on your voice matters.
Yeah.
So that was some of the.
So you taught from early age, like how to speak to a camera, how to speak to on video. So she got comfortable with that, right? That's a big key when you're speaking on stage. What else did you like really teach her?
Yeah, I mean, she's been homeschooled pretty much, the whole time. And we implemented, this is actually before she was born, we learned from Michael Lozier. Remember Michael Lozier? And he told us to remove don't, not, and no from our vocabulary. This is before she was born. And we practiced it. It was really hard. And what we really...
Second speaker that we ever saw,
and
right here.
We're like, this is gonna, because what happens is we're so programmed, especially in society now, right? We're programmed to actually not stand out. And especially with kids, they're going to school, like they don't wanna say, this is what I want. They're supposed to, hold back and wait. And so he said, if you remove don't, not, no. So for instance, how many times do we say, don't do that? No, you can't have that, right? And he said, if you remove that and you start telling them what to do, they start being raised in a positive frame. And so we would say, Hanalei, walk around the pool, take risks, just be responsible.
Don't walk through the pool.
Right.
Hanalei, you remember walk around the pool.
So we tell them what to do, because the reason why kids don't jump in that puddle is because they don't hear the don't. They actually hear jump in the puddle. So we get, why are they doing this? And parents get so frustrated, but we're not realizing all we're doing is we're layering a negative pattern into our children when they don't think that way.
And it all adds up, right?
Up.
So as children, we're all dreamers. I want to be an astronaut. I want to, whatever, walk down Broadway, whatever, race car driver.
Yeah.
And as we get older, we're like, oh, we can't do that. Right. And that's really, as a psychologist, really the years that determine your childhood, like what you're going to believe in adult, is usually around 4 till about 9.
Yeah, exactly.
4 to 9, that's like scary. That's like 5 years to like mold your child into more than likely the adult they're going to become, unless there's radical changes and you put them around completely different people after that. They pretty much are going to change. They stay that way.
Well, we were so mindful of those years. Like literally, we took her to every single entrepreneur event we ever went to, which was every 3 months. She's listened to hundreds and hundreds of audiobooks on her way to school and on the motorbike if we went to school or wherever we went. And we put people around her that we could not fulfill, like mentors, right? And at the age of 8, she was discovered as a fashion designer. She started her company at 11.
I saw that at 11. So she started her own fashion design company, started making 6 figures, I think, a year on that. That's amazing. And then how did she get on the speaking tour? I mean, a couple of years ago or something, right?
No,
Or
she's
when
been
was it?
speaking since she was 8 years old.
Since 8.
She's been flown business class from Bali to Las Vegas when she was 12.
Paris, France, and that's when she at 13 realized, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
I remember when
because she was being flown everywhere. We would take all of her collections. She would speak and she'd sell out 50 to 60 grand worth, and then we'd do it again somewhere else, and she'd make a new collection. And because we're entrepreneurs, we're like, we don't need to shop. We just have your staff. We make our stuff. We fly with it, hang everything up beautifully. She'd speak and everyone would buy everything, And so that was kind of the model, and it worked really, really well. But then she got burned out.
She got burned out. That's a lot for a 13-year-old. She wanted to be a kid.
Yeah.
She was written into a Warner Brothers movie.
Yeah.
We were actually going to move to
Arizona.
We were going to move to Arizona and then Hollywood, and it was right before the pandemic. And when that happened on that talk in Bali that she was talking about, she was, I may just take a break.
Yeah.
And that's like
COVID hit
and just.
I think because when Bali kind of closed down for a year or two or something, like you couldn't travel out. Yeah, it's kind of like Australia almost. Like you couldn't get in or out of the islands, like fortress.
We loved it.
So 2022 rolls around. Does she get back into speaking then, or what happened?
No, she
did one.
She did a few. She was doing some online stuff, and then she really focused on her art. And she's an author. She's in all 3 of my books. And it wasn't she did probably a talk about a year ago. And then another one, and then now she started to really come back into it. Now what it was is that she thought she was a fraud because this was her past. So she's like, now who am I? I can't talk about, I'm like, that's your story. And now you're creating your own, your own story again. And that's really because when we asked her when she was younger, what does she want to be now? Right? That's now the biggest talk because she asked herself that again. What do I want to be right now at 17? Right?
And that can change, right? As a 17-year-old, like most 17, 18-year-olds they might go to college to do something, and then they're in sales 3 years ago, and they were going to go to be an engineer, or vice versa, or something. Where do you feel like she wants to go in her career right now?
Well, we've been moving it. We went to London. She wants to go to school. She's like, I want to go to art school. I want to experience it. She's never done it. We're like, do you really need to do that? We're like opposite of most parents. And she's like, yeah, but I want to just experience it. So she's either going to move to London, somewhere in Europe. She's a third world, kid. So she's definitely not coming back to the States. However, I think she just wants to experience life. But because of her skill sets, she's an unbelievable artist. She knows how to sell. And that's actually.
Well, I saw her walking up and pacing back and forth about 20 or 30 minutes before she was up on stage, and like going through her notes. You could see her like she was rehearsing and stuff. She was just going back and forth with her headphones. I'm like, what 17-year-old does that or even knows how to do that, right? So that's remarkable from parenting that you guys would even know to raise your child like that. And I think, it goes even back to the personal development stuff that you learned from Loger and those guys. I still remember some of that stuff, right? My bishop quoted me something one time when I was in church before I got into network marketing about God feeds the birds but didn't drop worms in their nest. And then one of the first events I went to in network marketing, there's like Andy Andrews up there, and it's in his book. And I'm like, did my bishop quote the book, or did he quote from the bishop? Like, I don't know what's going on.
He was the first speaker.
Yeah, he was. I remember him, but I learned a ton from him and those type of things. What about your PR business? Where are you planning on going with that in the next 5 years?
Well, I'm taking, last year we cut about 70% of our clientele. And the reason why is because media, I believe, has so much power. And now knowing me being in this industry for over 18 years, I have a lot of relationships, and I also hold the keys to a lot of kingdoms. So we were starting to tell stories and publishing people into very top tier publications, getting on TV, interviews. And I realized that they were not aligned with our values. And
they might have been qualified enough to even be on TV yet.
Yeah, possibly not even fully qualified. But then more importantly, what do I want to, who do I want, what message do I want to go to the world? And some of those messages weren't not helping humanity. So we cut that, and now we're really focusing strongly on telling the narrative and controlling the narrative of good media, of those that are doing amazing things.
Really experts in their field.
Yeah, experts in their field, CEOs, companies that are making changes with their gifts and really helping others. I host a show at NASDAQ. I work a lot with New York Stock Exchange. That environment alone, we really need to bring the right people in there.
Yeah, you're around very high level people. So, Brian, am I going to see you in like 5 or 10 years be like the governor of Bali or something? Like you're going to be up there as the king of Bali. I'm not sure what the government system is there. What country that
we're
belongs.
doing quite the project up.
That's
in
what I'm saying.
I
could see him in 10 years. The long beard. He's like the governor of the island Bali. Where can they learn more about what you guys do for branding? I know I think branding is really important, obviously from a business perspective, but even if you're a vice president of sales for your company or a chief sales officer or you're a salesperson or a manager, branding yourself and getting out on social media and reels. I know sometimes it's hard for us. Like I didn't do my first reel on Instagram until January of 2022. I didn't even have an Instagram account. And my daughter was like, hey, why don't you do these reels? I'm like, what's that? And I built my IG from like 0 to 700,000 just, in 2 years just off reels, right? Just organic reels and stuff. So I think as a salesperson, if I can go back and change one thing, it would have been to be bigger on social media to get the message out about your product or service. And you can only do that with understanding how to brand yourself. So where can they go to learn more about branding and PR and those type of things you guys do?
Yeah, unstoppablebrandingagency.com is our website.
Unstoppablebrandingagency.com.
Yeah, and Rhonda Swan is my Instagram, and that's really where I give free content in regards to branding and
You do
PR.
reels and stuff like that. So make sure you follow her at Rhonda Swan. Her verified account has about 900,000 followers. Follow Brian at, I think it's the Surfer. What's it called?
Unstoppable Surfer.
I'm Unstoppable Surfer or BrianTSwan.com.
Yeah, I saw your IG. I was looking at that. I was like, of course, he's going to say the Unstoppable Surfer. This man is like a surfing legend.
Yeah.
Back in the day, are you better than you were like
Oh my gosh.
18
Oh, yeah.
years ago?
No, I'm the best.
He's 18 years older and
That's
he's
never
better
right.
now.
I'm the best I've ever been
How's
right
that
now,
possible?
by far.
Yeah, you're talking to me because we're getting, both of us are getting up there in age and stuff, and you're just like, man, I'm best shape I've been in for 20 plus years.
Like I'm strongest, best surfer. It's happening right now.
It's all in Bali. It's all in Bali. So if you need a ticket out to Bali, here's your family. All right. Thanks for being on. We'll see you guys next time. As usual, just follow me. If you just started watching the show, you can always follow me at Jeremy Lee Minor on my IG verified account. You can always go to Barnes & Noble and get our best-selling book, The New Model of Selling to an Unsellable Generation. It's going to give you kind of an overview of what we do. And of course, you want like advanced training like our clients, you can always get in contact with one of our representatives to go through the different training options. Swans, thank you. It's brought back a lot of memories. When I saw you the other day, I'm just like, that whole chapter of my life, I don't even remember.
Right.
Opening it back.
I'm like, I forgot about all that stuff, you know? It's like life changes. It's almost like life can change drastically every 3 to 6 months.
Right.
Your life can be totally different every 6 months. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So, all right, thanks. Thanks for being on.